أهلا وسهلا مرحبا بكم. نحن الآن في الدرس الرابع chapter 4 lesson 4 في صفحة 84 so page 84 القواعد grammar. We are going to be covering the last grammar lesson in lesson 4, okay? And that is all about الجملة. وما هي الجملة؟ الجملة يعني sentence. وفي اللغة العربية in Arabic language we have two types of sentences. Okay, so in this lecture, this lesson, we're going to be covering what those two types are. Okay, في جملة الاسمية والثاني هي جملة الفعلية. جملة الاسمية وجملة الفعلية. اسمية فعلية. Notice جملة الاسمية comes from the word اسم, which in grammar means noun. Of course, اسم means name, but in grammar we refer to اسم as noun. جملة فعلية comes from the word فعل, and فعل is a verb. So these are the two types of sentences. We call this a nominal sentence. وجملة فعلية, we call this verbal sentence. Okay. So what we're talking about now is complete sentences. Complete sentences. In the last lesson, we talked about some verbs, but we've also been talking about phrases, right? We've been talking about in lesson 3, we did al-ism al-sifa, which is a noun adjective phrase. We did, when we talked about al-idafa, idafa is a possessive phrase. When we're talking about al-jumla, now we're talking about complete sentences, not phrases that are just parts of a sentence, but what makes a complete thought? What makes a complete sentence that you can put a period at the end? Okay, so the two types of complete sentences that we have are these two, جملة الاسمية وجملة الفعلية. So we're going to start with one side and then we'll move to the other. جملة الاسمية comes from اسم and is usually when you have a sentence that تبدأ باسم. It starts with a noun. Okay, so جملة الاسمية, I'm going to put usually, not always, starts with a noun. Okay, and the reason why I'm putting usually is because in the next chapter we're going to look at some examples where you have جملة الاسمية that starts with a different type of word. But for now we're only going to be focusing on sentences that start with a noun. So if جملة الاسمية starts with a noun, then what about جملة الفعلية? تبدأ بفعل. So we usually, and in this case we're not going to put usually, we're going to say starts with a verb. Okay. So you have جملة الاسمية, it's a sentence that starts with a noun, and جملة فعلية, a sentence that starts with a verb. Okay. Now, each of these types of sentences have what we call عمدتين, the two pillars. The two pillars are the two main parts of the sentence, and it's what makes the sentence a complete sentence. So in order for you to have a complete sentence, it has to include العمدتين, the two pillars. Okay? So في جملة الاسمية, الجملة الاسمية متكونة من المبتدأ والخبر. It has two parts of the sentence. And the two parts of the sentence for جملة الاسمية, we call it المبتدأ, المبتدأ, which comes from the word بدأ, which means to begin. Okay? And المبتدأ is the subject. And it comes from the word to begin because it's usually the beginning of the sentence. The first noun of the sentence is usually the subject. والخبر. الخبر is the predicate. If you don't know the word predicate, it's just خبر, the information. What are you telling me about the mubtada? Okay, so the first part is always al-mubtada. That's usually the noun that you start the sentence with. And then the information that you're telling me about that noun, we call it al-khabar. So I'm going to give you some examples. Okay. So right now we're only going to focus on الاسمية. So if you're taking notes and you want to just continue down your column with this, that's fine. I'm just going to move over the slide so I have room. Okay. Okay, let's see. Maha طالبة. We'll start with something simple. Maha طالبة. The first thing we look at is the first word. ما هي أول كلمة في هذه الجملة? What's the first word في هذه الجملة in this sentence? The very first word that we have is maha. And you look at what type of word is it? Right now we're comparing ism and fi'l. So is it a noun or is it a verb? Remember, a noun is a person, place, or thing, right? And fi'l is an action. So maha, what kind of word is it? It's ism. So if the first word in that sentence is ism, we call this الجملة الاسمية. So we say, okay, this is جملة اسمية. وفي جملة اسمية يوجد المبتدأ والخبر. If you have a nominal sentence, you have to have the mubtada. I'm just going to put the meme for mubtada and the kha for khabar. So these two things that we talked about, al-mubtada wal-khabar, I'm just going to call it meme and kha. So we have to distinguish which one is which. Al-mubtada is always going to be that first noun, the thing you're talking about, the subject. So who are we talking about, or what are we talking about? We're talking about maha. So I'm going to put meme here. Maha, al-mubtada. Al-khabar is the information. ماذا عن maha? What about maha? What are you telling me about maha? أنها طالبة. So this right here, we call it khabar, because that's the information that you're telling me about maha. And this is easy because, it's only 2 words. I'll give you another one. That's also 2 words, so it's pretty easy. هم مشغولون. هم مشغولون. They are busy. They are busy. So it starts with a hum. It starts with hum, and hum is a pronoun, so that's a type of ism, that's a noun. So because that first word is a noun, we're going to call it the mubtada. That's the thing you're talking about. What are you telling me about them? إنهم مشغولون. They're busy. So busy, this is the information you're telling me about them. We call this الخبر. هم مبتدأ مشغولون خبر. Now, I want you to look at ترجمة. Look at the translation between these two. مها طالبة وهم مشغولون. If I say مها طالبة, ما معنى مها طالبة? كيف نترجم مها طالبة إلى الإنجليزية؟ ماذا نقول؟ We're going to say Maha is a student. There's the word is here. Of course, we don't use that word. It just translates, right? هم مشغولون. They are مشغولون. They are busy. What you will usually see is between the mubtada and the khabar when you're translating. Between the last part of the mubtada and the first part of the khabar is usually the being verb. So is, are, am, and those kinds of words are usually in between. Okay? So I'll give you another example. So this is one where it's a little bit longer, right? You have more than one word. But we look at the first word. We say ana. It's a noun or it's a verb. It's a noun. So that is going to be considered our mubtada. That's what we're talking about. What am I telling you about myself? Ana, I am in the house. So this right here is our khabar. So if you want, the other way that you could do it is you could draw a little line in between your mubtada and your khabar, so that when you translate it, wherever that line is, that's where you would put your being verb. I am in the house. Okay? And that'll help you because some of you guys were confused about, okay, well, where is the is? And how do I know where that is in a sentence? This is what's going to help you do that. Okay. Let's do another one. Pause the video and then come back when you're ready. والدة مها موظفة. So the first word is walidat. So that's a noun, right? It's mother. So we know that's mubtada. But what is maha here? Walidat maha. We're not saying mother is maha. We're saying walidat maha is together. Maha's mom. So if you have an idafa, keep the two words together. If it's a possessive phrase, keep the two words together. So your mubtada, when you underline it, could be more than one word. Okay? The mubtada is who or what are you talking about? So in this case, you're not just talking about a mother, you're talking about Maha's mom. What are you telling me about Maha's mom? So here's our mubtada. What are you telling me about her mom? أنها موظفة, that she is an employee. I could add more information. If I wanted, I could say موظفة في الجامعة. Okay? And you could include all of that as part of your khabar. That's all the information that you're telling me about her. Okay? So your mubtada can be more than one word if it's a phrase. Now, I want you to look at all four of these examples of mubtada and tell me whether they're ma'arifa, definite, or nakira, indefinite. Pause and come back. So if you look at all these, maha is a name. Hum, ana, those are pronouns. Walidat maha, you're telling me whose mom it is. So both of those together are ma'arifa. So the other rule that you want to know that will help you is that your mubtada usually starts with a definite noun. It's ma'arifa. Okay. So the first word of a sentence is usually going to be ma'arifa, definite. Okay. So I'm going to give you another example. Here's an even longer one. And I want you to really think about who are you talking about and what are you telling me about them? Oops. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video and then come back. الطلاب في هذه الكلية، كلية يعني college. الطلاب في هذه الكلية يدرسون في البيت. صح? Who are we talking about? The first word is a noun. الطلاب is a noun, so we know that this is a جملة اسمية, that we have to have a mubtada, we have to have a khabar. But who are we talking about in total, and what are we saying about them? The students في هذه الكلية. So the students in this college يدرسون في البيت, study at home. So who are we talking about? Are we just saying students, or are we talking about specific students? Good. We're talking about the students at this college. So that is part of the mubtada. Now we're not going to go over, there's i'rab, there's the case endings and specific names for each of these type of words. I'm not going to go over that right now. What I care about right now is, can you separate between the two major parts of the sentence? Okay? So الطلاب في هذه الكلية. Sure. These are the students we're talking about. What am I telling you about these students? That they do what? يدرسون في البيت. They study at home. So that is your khabar. So what I want you to notice now is that your mubtada has to be a noun, right? The first word of your mubtada always has to be a noun. No matter what, it's going to be a noun. Even when you have a phrase like these two, right? They're both nouns. And it can be more than one word. If you have the idafa, it's two words. But if you look at your khabar, طالبة, that's a noun. مشغولون, that's an adjective. في البيت, that's a preposition. Right? Here you have يدرسون, that's a verb. Your khabar can be anything. It can be a noun, it can be an adjective, it can be a verb, a preposition, it could be any kind of word. Your khabar could be whatever it is, okay, because it's just the information. But your mubtada has to be a noun. That first word in your mubtada has to be a noun. Okay. هذه هي جملة الاسمية. Okay, so that's جملة اسمية. Now let's go back and let's look at الجملة الفعلية. الجملة الفعلية also has two parts. الجملة الفعلية متكونة من الفعل والفاعل. So we have two parts of the sentence. The first is الفعل, and that's your verb, like I mentioned up here. So جملة الفعلية has to start with the verb. So the first word is going to be the verb. والفاعل is the doer. Who is doing the verb? And I'm not using the word subject here because I don't want you to get confused between mubtada and fa'al because they're two different things. Fa'al is who is doing the verb, who's doing the action. Okay? These are the two main parts of the sentence. You cannot have a complete sentence that's verbal without having the verb and the one who's doing the verb. Then there's an extra, and I'll put the extra here in blue. That's not mandatory. Not all your sentences are going to have it. So maybe I'll do it like this, where you may have it. And we call it al-maf'ul bihi. And al-maf'ul bihi is the object of the verb. What is the verb being done to? Okay. And this is not mandatory. Not all your sentences will have that. Okay. So جملة الفعلية, we say جملة الفعلية متكونة من الفعل, verb, والفاعل, the doer. Those are the two عمدتين, the two main parts of the sentence. Now you could have مفعول به, you could have an object, or you don't have to have one. It just depends on the sentence. So let's look at some examples. يأكل أحمد. Remember when we talked about verbs, we said that when you have a verb, you can start your sentence with the verb, or you can start your sentence with the subject. So in the verbal sentence examples, we're looking at those that start with the verb. So here, you have يأكل, that's your verb. So we call this الفعل. الفعل is your verb. من يأكل? Who's eating? أحمد, فهو فاعل. So the person who's doing the action, we call it الفاعل. There's no مفعول به because you don't know what he's eating. But if I added to this, because this is a complete sentence, Ahmad is eating. If I added, I could, if I wanted to, I could say يأكل أحمد السلطة. ماذا يأكل أحمد؟ السلطة. So if you added, this would be called المفعول به. This is your example of مفعول به. So you have the action, the doer, and the object, the thing the action is being done on. Okay? But these are the two that are mandatory. This is just extra. Now, what happens if you switch the words? Because you could start your sentence with Ahmad and put the verb next, right? Ahmad يأكل. Now when we look at this, ما هي أول كلمة في هذه الجملة? The first word, what's the first word in this sentence? Ahmad. And then you compare it, you say, okay, is Ahmad fi'al or is it ism? Is it a verb or is it a noun? Ahmad's the name of a person, so a person, place, or thing is a noun. So this is a noun right here. If the sentence starts with a noun, what kind of sentence is it? If it starts with a noun, it is considered جملة الاسمية, وجملة الاسمية has المبتدأ والخبر. So if that sentence starts with a noun, then Ahmed we call the mubtada. And what are you telling me about him? يأكل, he's eating. Even if it was يأكل السلطة, that would be khabar. Okay? So the important thing is you could have a verb in both of these sentences. A nominal sentence can have a verb and nouns, and so can a verbal sentence. What's important is أول كلمة, the first word. If the first word is going to be فعل, it's considered جملة فعلية, and it has a verb and a doer. If the first word is اسم, then it's considered جملة اسمية, and that first word is a مبتدأ. It's a subject. Okay. Let's look at some other examples. Let's do... Oops. Okay. تستمع فاطمة إلى الموسيقى. تستمع فاطمة. Fatima's listening to music. What's the first word in the sentence? Is it a noun or a verb? It's a verb because it's an action. So this is فعل. من تستمع. من يستمع إلى الموسيقى. Who's listening? Fatima. So this is considered our فاعل. Okay. We don't have مفعول به in the sentence because مفعول به is when you have just a noun directly afterwards. But we have the word إلى here, and that changes the grammatical function of the word. So that's why I'm not so much focused on مفعول به. So long as you can tell me the two main parts, فعل and فاعل. Okay, how about I'm writing a letter. أكتب رسالة. أول كلمة, first word. What is the first word? Is it a noun or a verb? أكتب, I write or I'm writing. So that's a verb. الفاعل, من يكتب? Who's writing? Who is writing? If you said رسالة, is the letter writing? Who's writing? Good. أنا, I'm writing. How do you know that I'm the one who's writing? Because أنا starts with what? It starts with an alif hamza, which tells you I'm the one doing the verb. So if you have a verb and you know from the meaning or in the context of the verb itself who's doing it, but the noun for that person doesn't exist. So I'm not saying أكتب أنا, right? I just said أكتب. It's just assume that I'm the one who's doing it. So in that case, what we do is we put الفاعل أنا, that I'm the person who's doing the action. Now there's a more fancy way of saying this. We say الفاعل تقديره أنا, right? ضمير. We're not gonna, if you have studied Arabic and you know all of the terminology, we're not learning all the terminology right now. What's important for me is just can you distinguish what these parts are? So then what would risala be? You've got the main two parts, so that's all you need to know. But if you wanted to figure out what risala meant, we have the verb. I'm the one who's doing the verb. What am I writing? ماذا أكتب? أكتب رسالة. So this is considered our مفعول به. This is the object, the thing that you're doing the action to. Okay. So the rule of thumb is this. You first look at the sentence. Look at the first word. Okay. 2. If it's, actually I'll just put, to make it easier. If it's a noun, okay, if it's a noun, then you have to find المبتدأ and الخبر. So you can just leave it as a meme and a kha. And remember that when it's a noun, that first noun that you have will be considered mubtada. That's going to be the definite noun. It's always going to be the first word, and it may include more words, like how we had walidat maha, the two of those go together. And khabar is just going to be the information about the thing that you're talking about. If you look at the first word, and it happens to be a verb, فعل. Okay? So here you have an action, here you have a noun. If it happens to be فعل, an action, then the two parts you're going to label is that first word is going to be considered فعل, your verb, and the one who's doing the action is considered فاعل. So this is your verb, and this is your doer. Okay? So that's how you'll do it. You always look at the first word. So now what we're going to do is you can look at, there's plenty of examples in your book in page 84, 85, and 86, okay, where they give you plenty of examples. I'm going to pick out two examples from here. We're going to stick with maha because we're talking about maha. والد مها يعمل في الأمم المتحدة. يعمل والد مها في الأمم المتحدة. You're going to pause the video, write these down, and then you are going to figure out what are the two parts of each of these sentences. Okay, now you should have done it. So what you can do is, let's actually put here, we'll label it. We'll label what it is on the right side, and then we'll نبين المبتدأ والخبر والفعل الفاعل. So in the first one, let's look at والد مها يعمل في الأمم المتحدة. هل هذه الجملة جملة الاسمية أم جملة الفعلية؟ Is it a nominal sentence or a verbal sentence? كيف نعرف من أول كلمة؟ ما هي أول كلمة؟ والد. وفي هذه الجملة يعمل. والد, you tell me, is it a noun or a verb? It's a noun. So this is going to be considered جملة الاسمية. Trying to write on the edge. جملة الاسمية. So this is a nominal sentence. Whereas يعمل, this is a verb, so this is جملة فعلية. Can I put the dots in there? Barely. Okay, الجملة الاسمية, if it's a nominal sentence, what are the two parts of a nominal sentence? We have المبتدأ والخبر. So then we have to look at this and say, okay, ما هو المبتدأ وما هو الخبر? والد مها يعمل في الأمم المتحدة. So we know والد for sure is part of the مبتدأ. Is any other word part of the مبتدأ? When I say والد by itself, it's indefinite, it's nakira. Right? Because there's no alif lam, there's no pronoun, there's nothing. It's just father. But whose father is it? Maha's father. That whole phrase now is a definite noun phrase, right? Because it's possessive. Maha's father. So Maha's father, walid Maha, mubtada. What about him? What are you telling me about him? يعمل في الأمم المتحدة. So all the rest of that we can call our خبر. We're not going to go, there's specific words. في is a حرف and we have حرف جر. I'm not going to teach you all that in this lesson. So just مبتدا and خبر, that's it. Okay. The second one starts with يعمل. So it starts with a verb, which means the two parts of the sentence are going to be فعل والفاعل. So we look at this and we say, okay, يعمل. Let's do it in a different color, shall we? Okay. يعمل is going to be considered فعل. من الفاعل? Who's the one who's doing the action? Good. والد مها. فاعل. He is the one who's working. Okay. So those are the two parts of the sentence. That's how you're going to differentiate between the two. So the drill that you're going to be doing is تمرين 18. تمرين 18. So if you look at page 87. Page 87. 87 looks like this. We're going to cover the numbers in the next chapter. Okay. So we have صفحة 87. And in page 87, you have sentences. Okay? And what you have to do is differentiate where's the مبتدا and خبر if it's a جملة اسمية and where's the فعل فاعل if it is جملة فعلية. So if I look at the first one, it says تستمع أختي إلى الأخبار دائما. What I want you to first do is on the right side, you're either going to write ألف if it's اسمية or you're going to write فا if it's فعلية. That's the first thing I want you to do. So we look at the first word here, تستمع, listens. Is that a noun or an action? Good, so that's a verb. So this one is فعلية. So what you're going to do, don't want to clear the frame. No. Is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to write on the right side, okay, this is جملة فعلية. جملة فعلية, remember, has to have فعل and it has to have فاعل. Okay. So what I want you to do is if you have a sentence that has جملة فعلية, I want you to put a circle around the فعل and a square around the فاعل. Okay. So where would your circle go in this sentence? Which one is the verb? Good. So here's your verb. Who's doing it? من يستمع إلى الأخبار؟ أختي هي فاعل. So here's your فاعل. If you have a sentence that is اسمية, we have إخوتي اثنين إخوتي مشغولون بالعمل دائما. إخوتي, إخوة, remember, was the plural of أخ, which is brothers. Okay. So إخوتي, that's the first word. That's a noun. So if it's a noun, what kind of sentence is it? اسمية. Very good. I'll put this in red. So you'll put next to it an ألف to show that it's اسمية. If it's جملة اسمية, I want you to find, of course, المبتدا والخبر. And you're going to put a line underneath the مبتدا and two lines, double underline الخبر. Okay. Or if you want to draw a line in between them like that, that's okay too. Okay. So إخوتي, my brothers, مشغولون, are busy. So my brothers are the people we're talking about. What are you telling me about them? They're busy. If you want to put the whole thing, they're busy with work, that's fine. Notice, my brothers are busy. So if you want instead to draw a line in between to show you, okay, that line represents the being verb. My brothers are busy. Okay. So for that entire drill, this is how I want you to do it. You're Your book has it listed in a certain way, but I think this will be easier. So first label right here, whether it's جملة اسمية or جملة فعلية. If it's جملة اسمية, you're going to underline مبتدا and double underline خبر. And if it's فعلية, you're going to circle the فعل and you're going to square the فاعل, which is, remember, the doer. So you have the verb and the doer. And here you have the subject and the information.